doing? My name's Dave, and if you've decided to go crazy with electric pianos today, you can call me David Boo, the mobile music minstrel. How you doing? That's right. Today, I am going electric piano crazy. I've got all the electric piano apps that I currently own here hosted in 8 Matrix because I'm going to show off the differences in the electric piano apps for y'all. What have I got here? I've got Neo Soul Keys Studio 2, and I've got 6 instances of Neo Soul Keys Studio 2, which I'll explain in just a second. I've got Electric Vintage, I have House Mark 1, and the new VTines. And then I got a little instance of V meters here. You got some VU meters in the bottom so you can see how they are loudness-wise compared to each other. Why do I have 6 instances of Neo Soul Keys Studio 2? All right. Let me do a quick historical recap of electric pianos here, but I've spoken at length about electric pianos in other videos, which I'll link down in the description below. But here's a quick historical recap. There were 2 major types of famous electric piano brands, Wurlitzer and Fender. There were other electric pianos, but those are the 2 most well-known. The Fender Rhodes piano and the Wurlitzer 200A is the most commonly known. We're not going to talk about the Wurlitzer today. Today, we're just talking about the Rhodes. Now, first, it was owned by the Fender Musical Instrument Company. I don't think it was called FMIC at that time. But anyway, it was owned by Fender and put out the Fender Rhodes piano. And then eventually, Fender sold it, and they just started putting it out as the Rhodes piano in the 70s. And then eventually, they stopped making them. But over the years, different models were made. So I have 6 different instances of Neo Soul Keys Studio here to illustrate some of the different versions. Now, comparing Neo Soul Keys Studio to these other apps is kind of unfair because Neo Soul Keys Studio has a lot of different electric pianos available, whereas these other apps, Electric Vintage, House Mark 1, VTines, I get the impression that they just sampled a single electric piano. So, there are 2 main types of Rhodes pianos. There is a Suitcase model and a stage model, and I will put pictures of them above so you can see the difference. The stage model was just the, piano keyboard itself with the mechanics inside with, open legs on the bottom. And the Suitcase model had actual speaker cabinet and amplifier that the keyboard would sit on top of. Anyway, so here in Neo Soul Keys Studio, I have a Mark 1 Suitcase 1. Now, you're going to hear the words Mark 1 and Mark 2. That really refers to the shape of the top of the Rhodes itself. Rhodes originally had a rounded top. On the older versions, it was a silver sparkle in like the 60s. And then the 70s, it went with a black plastic. But because it was rounded, it looked pretty, but keyboard players had a hard time stacking other keyboards on top of it. So eventually they made the Mark II, which had a flat top, and the top had a little bit of a different design. I'm trying to compare the same make and model of electric pianos here. So here's one Mark 1. The second one is Mark 1 Suitcase 2, Suitcase 3, and Suitcase 4. These are all different actual physical pianos that have been sampled. Then, the 5th instance here, I have a stage Mark 1 as opposed to the Suitcase. And then I have a stage Mark II. Okay, so all of the different various Fender Rhodes Suitcase and stage models are represented here. There are other Rhodes models inside Neo Soul Keys Studio. Again, I had to keep this sort of limited to not have this take forever. Also, one thing I'd like to note here is that I chose stock presets from these apps and did not tweak them. I tried to find the basic representation of each sampled keyboard, but I did not go to lengths to try and make them sound like each other because I want you to hear the basic sound of these apps. Crafting them, if you have an EQ and you have some tone shaping ability, then you can craft most of these to sound very close to one another if you want to take the time. So I want to show off what the basic sounds sound like out of the box, okay? So that's Neo Soul Keys Studio. Now, then I've got Electric Vintage here. With the default preset, the reverb is on in Electric Vintage, so I have turned it off here, so you can see. So there's no reverb on here, so that way it sounds just like the others. I've got House Mark 1 with its default preset, and then I've got VTines here with its default preset. So that's what I'm going for here as a comparison. The way I'm going to do it is I have my iRig Keys 37 Pro here on the desk, and I'm going to switch the MIDI input, so that way I don't have to reroute everything every time. Now, all of these are running into the V meters, so you'll see down on the bottom how loud they are compared to one another. That'll make more difference as we get down further in, but let's start. Here we go, Neo Soul Keys Studio 2, Mark 1, Suitcase 1. Now, let's go to the next one and see how that compares. Okay, we'll do a closer comparison in a moment. Now we're on to the stage models. And a Mark II stage. Electric Vintage. House Mark 1. And VTines. Okay, let's walk through these a little more slowly. The real difference that you're going to hear here is not just the sampling, but the piano itself. You might hear a little more bell on one. You might hear one might sound a little more muffled. One might have a little more grit because the amp pushes a little harder. So let's do something simple here. Mark 1, Suitcase 1. Now, Suitcase Mark II. Now that immediately sounds more muffled, like there's less high end. Let's go back. Okay, so this is mellower. Back to the first one. Okay, so now let's go to third. Suitcase 3. Back to Suitcase Mark 1. Very similar. A little less, maybe low mids, a little less meat in there. A little more bark. Definitely thinner sounding. Okay, so then let's go to the last Suitcase. The first one so far is my favorite. I hear a little more bell in that one. Hear the... about back here. See, this one is meatier. 2 is meatier with less bite. 4 has more bell. You really hear it there. And that's thinner, 3. Okay, so that's the Suitcase models in Neo Soul Keys. Let's go to the stage model. So a little more bell. You can hear the bell as the hammer comes off there. How does that compare to the Mark II? Okay, more meat here. Less bell, less tine sound. Now, the low end of a Rhodes has a particular quality to it that I've always loved. Let's run through the Neo Soul Keys. We'll do an E flat here. That's mean. Nice. That is mean sounding. Okay, so you can see I like the Stage Mark II the best of those. There's a lot of value in Neo Soul Keys, and like I said, it's kind of unfair to compare it to the rest of these, but it's also much bigger, right? It's huge. It's gigabytes and gigabytes of samples, so it's a trade-off. All right, let's go to Electric Vintage. Oops, let's go up an octave. Now, I've always liked this because it sounded more like the Rhodes that I owned, and it also sounds more like the Rhodes that I like to hear in records. I like Rhodes from like the early to mid 70s where there's not that much bell on it. You don't hear the chiminess of it. You just hear that barky mid-range. Like that there, the low end. But admittedly, this sounds much thinner than, say, the Stage, or the Suitcase, I mean. But it has that really nice bite on the top that I really dig. Alright, now let's go to... So that's Electric Vintage. I dig it. It's a little thinner than the rest. Not quite as full and rich, but you know, sometimes things that are too full and rich could eat up a mix. Here's House Mark I. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that this is much quieter. Much, much quieter. So let's go here. Let's turn the master all the way up and see if it gets any... To me, House Mark I is the most disappointing. I like it the least. It's too quiet. I feel like the sampling... I don't like the way they've set the velocity layers. See, there's no gradient between the nice round sound and the barky sound. Whereas on an amp like... you hear the velocity change more gradually on something like Electric Vintage than you do on Housemarque 1. But this is Housemarque 1 again. It's got a decent low end. But I don't know. I like it the least. Of all of these, it's my least favorite choice. Finally, VTines. Now, VTines is the new kid on the block. So how does this sound? VTines has surpassed Electric Vintage as my favorite electric piano on iPad. I think this thing sounds excellent. I hear a little bit of the room. And I think it's got like an amp simulator, and you can turn that off. But to me, VTines has got the bark that I like, right? When you dig in. And you hear a little bit of tine, but not so much. Like, I feel like I could dial out the chimey bits on the high end there. But the amp sounds so good. And I feel like it's got the fullness and the richness of Neo Soul keys. But it just, it's the kind of Rhodes sound I really dig. So once more, let's blast through these with, let's go up to a higher register, because I always play in the mid to low register on the Rhodes. I like that tone set the best, but let's go up here. Let's do maybe a, oh, hey, I actually have to be plugged into something. The advantage of Neo Soul keys here is that because you have such a variety of different recorded Rhodes, you have so many different feels. Again, that fuzziness, I really dig it on Electric Vintage. See, and again, that's pretty, but in comparison, I find it just wimpy next to the others. And that's the one that I'm going to go to. So there's a quick run through some stock sounds of a variety of different electric piano apps for the iPad. There are a few other apps that do electric pianos. I don't have them. These are the ones that I have, but it gives you a good idea of the range of sounds that you can get. Couple of notes here. Neo Soul keys. I have the expansion for the Mark 7. So there, as you know, there's the Mark 1, there's the Mark 2. There were other versions. There was the Mark 5 later on in the early 80s. The Mark 7 was what the Rhodes company put out, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now, maybe less than that. It was in the 2000s for sure, 2000s to 2010s. They came back and they tried to put one out, and I don't think anybody really cared about it. But it has its own tone set that sounds really interesting. You know, when you buy Neo Soul keys, they have a CP70 in there, they have a Wurlitzer in there, they have a clavinet in there, they have, you know, Dyno EPs, which is, it was an add-on for electric pianos that made them sound nice and bright and chimey when you get that kind of real classic 80s sound. So Neo Soul keys offers a lot more than the other apps, but it's also considerably larger in size. So that's a consideration. Electric Vintage has the best set of effects of any of these that I think. It's got a slicer, a chorus, wah, phaser, delay. This is the one that has the most ability to make it sound not like an electric piano, and that might be an advantage to some people. I dig this, but, you know, I'm a big Apesoft fan. And then, you know, VTines and Housemarque 1 are really just straight up recreations of electric pianos, of Rhodes electric pianos. But hey, I hope you liked this deep dive. Please, if you like this sort of thing, give the video a thumbs up. It really helps. It helps the YouTube algorithm recommend my channel more so that I get more views and so you guys get more videos and stuff like that. So please, if you like this, give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Please go to davypoo.bandcamp.com and see all the music I've got there. I've got tons of music, and I think there's only 2 songs on there that I'm selling. But there's like 13 albums that are all for free. So go download it. Go listen to the stuff that I do. Let me know if you think that I'm worth watching, because now you can see what I make in my real life. So go check out the music, davypoo.bandcamp.com. Check me out on Facebook. Check me out on Instagram. Check me out on Twitter. Go talk to me on the Audio Bus Forum. I'm all over the place with these social media sites. And hey, go check out these electric piano apps. There are links to the all of them in the description below. And I will see you guys next freaking time, baby. Stay safe out there, everybody. We're so close to the end of this crazy COVID shit. We're almost done. Hang in there, buddies. I'll see you next time. Later.